It is now 6 o'clock. We would like to call this meeting of the Allgood City Council to order. We begin our meetings with an invocation and a pledge of allegiance, and I have asked Reverend Richard Bond if he would lead us in the invocation, and I will ask you all to stand and remain standing after the invocation so that we may do the pledge. I'll ask Miss Walker if she would call the roll.
Honorable Mayor Fowler.
Here.
Honorable Councilman Bilbrey.
Here.
Honorable Councilman Graves.
Here.
Honorable Councilwoman Hawkins.
Here.
Honorable Vice Mayor Hill.
Here.
Our next items are to consider the agenda and minutes, both of which we have received previously, and I'll ask the council to look over those and make us aware if there are any changes or additions or corrections that need to be made at this time.
Motion to approve the agenda.
There's been a motion made to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler.
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey.
Yes.
Honorable Graves.
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
We also have the minutes. You've had a chance to review those. I would entertain a motion regarding approval of the minutes or correction if need be.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bilbrey.
Yes.
Honorable Graves.
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
As we do for efficiency's sake, item number 3 is to consider approval to suspend the reading of Ordinance 705-24, 707-24, and Resolution 362-24 and 363-24. We do that so that we don't have to take up your time in reading each of those independently at this moment. However, each of those ordinances and resolutions will be discussed in its entirety as presented on the agenda. So I will consider a motion to suspend the reading of the ordinances and resolutions at this time.
I make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
All right. Item number 4 is regarding ordinance 705-24. This is here for second and final reading. This would amend our municipal code to add that the judge may have the authority to declare citations uncollectible and purge the city court records thereof after 10 years from the date of violation. This being done because there's little chance that we'll ever recover any funds, and we do have some that are quite old and they do need to be purged. And so this would be to add this passed on first reading January the 9th. Before it can become law, we have to have a second reading and vote, but we also have to have a public hearing regarding whether this ordinance, if anyone has anything that they wish to say regarding this ordinance. I will suspend our meeting at this moment to allow for the floor to be open for the public hearing regarding ordinance 705-24. If anyone has any questions or any hearing none, I will close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and I will resume our council meeting and now ask if the council has anything they wish to discuss regarding and second vote on this ordinance. I make the motion that we go ahead and approve this on second and final reading, which allows the city judge to have the authority to declare citations uncollectible and purge them from the city court records thereof after 10 years from the date of the violation. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, we have item number 5, which is also a proposed ordinance. This is on first reading. This is ordinance 707-24, and it's to adopt procedures for the appointment of department directors, and this is sponsored by Councilman Graves. As it stands now, our ordinance allows the city manager, city administrator to choose all department heads except for 2. The council has the right to appoint the city clerk, and we have the right to appoint the city manager or city administrator. It has been this way for several years, even before we have our current city manager or our current attorney. Now, 707-24 wants to amend that or change that ordinance to provide that the city administrator will appoint the person for the director's job and submit the appointment to the City Council, which will be placed on the agenda for the next regular meeting that occurs more than 5 days after the appointment for ratification or rejection by the City Council. We had much discussion about this yesterday. We have discussed this with our attorney, and who has advised. He stated those reasons very clearly last evening, but for the benefit of the public that's here, I would like to have him address that, if he doesn't mind at this time, as to the potential dangers if we go ahead with Ordinance 707-24.
Well, Mayor, I'm glad to address this. So I guess let me start by saying that most cities and communities do not allow the council to get involved in personnel decisions in the modern era. And the reason for that has historically been that councils get involved for political reasons or other reasons. I certainly don't think anyone on this council would do it, but when all good passes ordinances, they have to look all the way to the future and what future councils might do, and different people than who are involved here. In addition, council people are generally part-time. Some of them have other jobs and responsibilities of their own. They have families. Some are retired and have more time than others, but they're not generally trained in HR issues and other things that your city staff are generally trained in. They don't have the benefit of MTAS advice. They don't have the benefit of other things like that when they come to council meetings and make decisions. And so there are a lot of times that if a council member is going to get involved in a personnel decision, they'll come with less information than your regularly hired city administration will come with. That's the reason councils hire city managers or city administrators, it's called in all good, is because those persons generally have that background and that experience that they bring to those kinds of decisions. Generally, and it's the same in the city of Cookeville and it's the same in many other places, the city council will be responsible for the supervision, hiring, and firing of their city manager or city administrator. And they let that person then be the chief executive on the day-to-day basis of the city to make those kinds of decisions. There are lots of considerations that elected people might have that a salaried employee might not have. And I certainly am not saying that anyone in all good would have these kinds of motivations, or on this council especially. But again, you make decisions for future councils and future people who wouldn't be involved. People can make decisions for political favors. People can make decisions based on nepotism. People can make decisions based on misunderstanding of the discrimination laws and different things like that. There's lots of reasons that councils generally are not recommended to get involved in those decisions. And this has come up from time to time, and I've been pretty consistent in my opinion on this. Certainly all good can make this change if they want to. The charter gives the council the power to make those kinds of decisions if the council wants to exercise that. But as you said many years ago, the council passed. It's worked very well for the city of Allgood since that time. Things have gone really well here for the last number of years without any problem. If the council feels that a city manager or city administrator is not making the right decisions or not picking the right people for the department, the city council has an affirmative responsibility to hold that city manager or city administrator accountable. They have an affirmative responsibility to supervise that employee that is their employee and replace that individual if that person's not making the right kinds of decisions. But generally, I would recommend that a council not get involved in those things. There are other practical reasons as well that we talked about last night. Practically, if the city administrator is going to make a recommendation to the council for a department head, that is who the city administrator has vetted and who the city administrator believes is going to be best to fit in that role and to provide that service for the city of Allgood. If the council rejects that person, that's fine. But then who does the city hire? Does the city hire the second person, the second best person? Do any of the candidates continue to have their names involved? If you go to the second or third person, that person knows in that circumstance that the city administrator said, I don't want you because you're not my first choice. And that creates friction between the city administrator and that person that the city administrator then has to work with on a day-to-day basis. And it creates an opportunity for friction and hardship and hard feelings. Now, you hope people will be professional and they'll get over those kinds of things. But as you all know, that doesn't always happen. And so you run a very serious risk if you pick the second or third choice that the city administrator has already rejected. In addition, especially when you're a municipal government, you're trying to get people from other communities generally to come work here. You know, if you're going to hire, the most recent hire is a fire chief, so I use that as an example. I think they like Chief Judd. I don't think there's any issue replacing him, but let's say that job was open again tomorrow. And you want to try to get the best candidates to apply. You try to get the best candidates from Cumberland County. You try to get them from White County. You try to get them from Smith County and the surrounding areas. Those people all have public employers too. They answer to their city councils and to their city managers and administrators, depending on their form of government. And they may not be willing to apply if they know that they're going to have to run the gauntlet in a public meeting and be voted yes or no in a public meeting and give up their good job on the chance that they're going to be approved by a city council. And so what you have then practically is that people don't apply, or you have fewer applicants, and so you have a smaller applicant pool to choose from. So there's that practical reason too. And I guess finally, it was brought up, and correctly so, by Councilman Graves, and it is a good point, that Putnam County recently hired a fire chief, and the county commission recently ratified that decision. But the difference between Putnam County and the city of Allgood is the system of government in Putnam County. The county mayor who makes that decision, if the county commission disagrees with his decision, they've got to wait till the next election and hope that they can marshal enough votes in the community to vote that individual out. I think Mayor Porter's doing a good job, and I hope that doesn't happen in Putnam County. But it's different, you know, in a city like Allgood, where you have a city administrator. If you on the council or in a future council doesn't think that the city administrator's hiring the right people for the job, you all have a right to replace the city administrator, because that is a position at will. So that puts more pressure on the city administrator in one instance, in that the city administrator has to answer to you all on the council and future councils and has to do the right thing, hire the right people. On the other hand, it's a lot more pressure day to day for a city manager to be thrust into a position where they have to work with somebody perhaps that they have friction with because they weren't the first choice and the council had a different choice. So it's certainly very good for the city council to be involved in the overarching direction of the city. It's important for the city council to give that direction to the city manager, to the city administrator, to pass resolutions and ordinances, to communicate this is the direction we want our city to go in. But as far as actual personnel decisions, as far as hiring and firing, it's generally my recommendation that a council stay out of those decisions. Pass job descriptions, pass minimum qualifications, pass other things like that, but don't get into, I want Ms. Smith for the job, or I want Mr. Williams for the job. That's not the best use of a city council's time, in my opinion. And I've been pretty consistent about that at the city of Allgood and at other communities that I have the opportunity and privilege to represent. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
I think there's two sides to the story. Most of what Danny said is true. Danny helped write. Danny did write this at my request. First of all, I don't think it's valid to assume that a list of job duties that was written years ago, long before any of us were here, is the only way to look at things. There are other ways of viewing that job description. And on Keith's responsibility, his list of things that he's responsible for, there's about 8 or 9 different line items. And the last line item is, and it says, other resolutions. He must follow other resolutions that have been passed. it leaves it wide open to change what his functions are. That was my first request of Danny. And he said, no, it can't be a resolution. It has to be an ordinance if you propose something, because this is in the municipal code. So, okay, I'm fine with that. But another thing that I disagree with is I think the council hire as directors, police chief, fire chief. This has nothing to do with the rank and file members that Keith deals with every day, all the employees that are in this city. This has nothing to do with them. This only specifies someone who is a director of public works or parks or some entity that has been created by the council, as well as hiring a fire chief, which we recently did, or a police chief. Now, hiring of our fire chief was a very smooth operation. Keith did a fantastic job of looking at the applications, reviewing them, submitting them to a ranking through, putting them through a ranking system, and finally coming down to the point that David was chosen. He was very transparent in what he did. He sent messages to each of us so we could see what he was doing and following him. But as most of this was hashed out last night, and I don't want to go through all of it again, don't intend to. I'm just going to make a few statements. But, for instance, in the fire chief, we all know that David's been here for a long time, working with our fire department. We all know that he lives in the city of Allgood. We all know that he has a passion for what he does for this city. But that ranking system, as it was revealed to us, had a high priority item on, do you have a college degree? Or do you not have a college degree and are just applying on experience? Well, David's got the experience. And it doesn't make sense to me that somebody that might have 3 college degrees in agriculture or poultry raising or driving a race car or something else should have a higher ranking than somebody else that has the passion for the job. And that passion has no place, there's no place to evaluate his passion and his interest in this city versus someone who lives somewhere else. So to me, it could have worked out if a tenth of a point could have changed the whole situation. I think the council loves the fact that David got the job. I do, and I think most of us do. I can't speak for everybody, but that's my feelings. As far as council having control over Keith's job, that's true. But I don't even think we ought to be talking in terms of firing the city manager, city administrator. Keith has done a fantastic job. He's been here several years. He was here before I got on the council. 99.9% of everything he does, I am perfectly happy with. And to me, this does not threaten his job. So I don't think we ought to be speaking in terms, well, I've stood up and defended him 3 or 4 years ago to try to help him keep his job, and I still will do that. The only thing I'm asking for in this is once he does his fantastic job, and he comes up with a prime candidate and he says, this is who I recommend, all he does is present that to the council, and the council can say yes or no. They just look at his decision, and I can't imagine that anybody would turn that down. Maybe other people can imagine that, but I only have 7 years of history in Allgood, so there may be some stuff going on that some people might pull some stuff. I don't know. I only got 7 years of being here, plus reading about it for a few years in the paper, and that wasn't too pleasant. But I've made this proposal. It's an ordinance. We can accept it or reject it. It's not going to be life or death to any of us. But I think I would like to look at the bright side of it and say, Keith's doing a great job. Let's keep Keith. And I don't see it having that negative impact on somebody else that might want to come here. If we have a cleanly run city with good employees and we pay our employees adequate salaries, I don't see a negative effect on trying to get somebody else if we had to. So that's my opinion. The only thing that changes is the council gets a vote. And I don't see how exactly that ties into, I mean, I did bring that up about Randy Porter and their new fire chief. Yeah, he's elected. So what? They ratified who he suggested. And if they had said no, he's still there because he's elected, but it would have created a conflict probably. But I don't think this way I've seen this city council operate that it's going to be a problem. The future, I can't read. They couldn't read the future back when they wrote all his job requirements either. That was 10 or 15 years ago. So I don't see any problem in changing or tweaking one job responsibility. And maybe I'm the only person that feels that way. If I am, so be it.
Anything further?
I'll just add my 2 cents and be quick. I agree with you. Keith's doing a great job. I think this is less about Keith, less about this council, and more looking at a fundamental structure of our city government. And again, last night I made the comment, and I'll stand by it, is that do we want the strongest administrative team possible? And I think the best way to effectuate the strongest administrative team possible is to let the leader, the executive, the manager, pick his team and pick the leaders that he wants underneath him. I think when we come behind him but Keith wins the lottery and is not here, the next person, to give the council the ability to then say, no, we don't want that leader on your team, I think weakens the administrative leadership of the executive, and I don't think that's what we want. I think we need to blind this out of this council, this city administrator, and just look at it just from the general structure of that. And I think we're stronger when we stay out of the executive's way and let them pick their team and let them lead. My 2 cents.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm going to make a motion to approve it.
All right, there's been a motion made to approve ordinance 707-24 by Mr. Graves. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Ms. Hawkins. All right, if there is no other discussion amongst the council, then I'll ask Ms. Walker to call the roll.
Mayor Fowler,
No.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
No.
Okay, this was passed on first reading, so it will come up for second reading and a public hearing at our next meeting, which will be March 12th. All right. Moving on to item number 6 is to consider of awarding a sidewalk repair bid, and this is from Director Bradshaw's department. We have the bid opening results in our packet, and it looks like we only had one bidder, and that is Affordable Driveways. The thing I can say, though, about Affordable Driveways is that we have used them before, and they do a lot of work for us. But this would be to award them the the sidewalk repair. It's just all the ones that you had, which is affordable driveways.
It is. It's the only ramps, which are handicap accessible pedestrian ramps. Demolition with haulaway and demo and an equipment fee. This bid would be good for work through June the 30th. And we have used them for several years, and they always are the low bidder, so they do good work.
Have they done anything recently, just for my information? Have we had any sidewalk stuff done?
We were trying to get some done before Christmas, and the weather didn't cooperate, and so the bid time ran out, and I had to pull him off. But we had a project pending to do some repairs downtown and do some things, and we just couldn't get it done with the weather the way it was.
And this is basically the same pricing they've been giving us.
It is. The way we bid this is our install price. The concrete is included at market price at time of install because it fluctuates so much. It's hard to get a bidder to give me a price that includes concrete per square foot because it's just, it's up and down, and they don't want to bid it for 6 months knowing that it's going to change that much unless they know it's going to go down a lot.
And we don't have the internal capacity to take on any concrete projects. I mean, I don't think we do, but thought I'd ask.
We do occasionally if it's something small, but when we need something larger, I try to have somebody on bid that I can just call and say, here's what I need.
Which is this.
Mm-hmm.
We need a motion or something? I'll make the motion.
We do if we're going to approve it, if we're going to offer it to Affordable Driveways. So you're making the motion to award the sidewalk repair to Affordable Driveways. Is that right, Mr. Graves?
Motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Walker.
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item number 7, consider approval award the pressure relief valve on Miranda Road. And we have several bidders on that, and we have different things to consider and different amounts. This is from Director Bradshaw's department, but this, I don't know. Do you want to speak to that, Mr. Morrison, or
Yeah, I can
have
handle
Mr.
this one.
Okay.
I can do this. Director Bradshaw has been working on the pressure relief valve. For you all that don't know where it's at, when you drop off the hill at Miranda Road in Brangus Lane, at the bottom of the hill, there's a pressure reducing valve because as the water goes down the hill, it gets so much pressure that if we don't reduce it, it'll blow out hot water heaters and lines and things of that nature. So this valve's been in the ground for several years, and in the last 2 years, we've worked on it 3 times now. Well, and it's rusting and needs replacement. The replacement that we've bid here, currently, if the pressure relief valve goes out, the only way to keep the pressure from blowing out things is to turn the water off. With this new system, it'll have a pressure release valve, but it'll also have a bypass backup. So it'll have a secondary backup that if the main pressure relief valve was to quit, it would switch over and go through the bypass and still be cut down. This will give us an opportunity that if something was to happen, we're not going to blow out a bunch of hot water heaters and issues of that nature. The apparent low bidder is Wascon, which is a company we use for a lot of things. They do sewer repair, sewer pumps. They do water items for us. The low bid is $17,427. That is with a valve vault that is a non-traffic rated lid. This will be a vault that'll be off to the right side of the road, so there aren't going to be cars driving on it anyway. But we think this is a necessity to avoid any damage to homes out in the area. And with the secondary bypass, we think this is a smart upgrade, and we would recommend Wascon at $17,427.
How long of a project? Is it a day? Is it a week?
They probably do it in a couple of days.
So the homeowners out there, are they going to be without water during that time, or what's the situation? Okay.
The plan would be to let everybody get up, showered, off to work and school, shut it off, get it on before they get back home.
Just communicate.
Yep. It's a 6 to 8 week delivery time, so we would advertise ahead of time, hey, this is going to happen on this date, so folks could plan.
I'll make the motion to approve Wascon $17,427.
Motion made by Mr. Hill. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item number 8 is to consider approval of a dog park fence bid. It looks like we've had 4 bidders on that. We have had some considerable discussion that the area that we bid or had small space, as I recall. That would be, I think someone bid it at 100 by 100. Is that correct?
So the base bid was for a 100 by 100 fenced in section split into 2 sections, one half for large dog, one half for small dogs. If you all remember, I guess 2 months ago or 3, when we talked about this, Vice Mayor Hill asked for a diagram of what the comparison of those was, and I put that together and sent it out to everyone for your review. The alternate one was for a 200 by 200, and one of the bidders did a 100 by 200. The apparent low bidder for a 100 by 100 is Ed Bruce with Exterior Home Solutions. And then the 200 by 200 would be West 10 Fencing and Ed Bruce if you went with a 100 by 200. So I know you all had talked about fencing in a larger area, which is fine. You know, it's council decision. If we do our own fencing, I'm going to have to find the fence, and I'm going to need an auger to put it in the ground. I'm not going to be able to do all those by hand because it's going to be a lot of digging. So, and we're limited on manpower anyway. So,
Didn't we sort of decide last night that we were going to get some prices for linear footage and things?
we haven't been able to get that. So, if you want to reject all of these and us do that, we can do that, or we can rebid it. It's whatever you all want to do. But whatever you want to do, we need to decide tonight. We couldn't decide anything really in a work session.
These prices for 200 by 200 are $29,000 to $48,000. You take a 200-foot run, about the size of a lot of people's backyards, a long-legged dog from be one end of it to the other in 2 seconds. That's not much of a dog park. And part of our discussion last night was to look at what it costs to buy chain link fence, and Roy is doing that, or going to do that, he said, and he is. But I was curious last night myself, so I started looking up things on the internet. You can get a 5-foot fence. Doesn't have to be the galvanized. There's lots of different types of chain link. And the prices range from about $7 to $15 a linear foot. Suppose it costs $15 for a linear foot, and you take this 800 feet or 1,000 that we were looking at and expand that to 2,000 or 3,000 linear foot, create a much bigger dog park, and it'd be less than the cost of these bids still. I guess it comes down to do we want to spend $30,000 or $40,000 for something that a big dog can't really use, or do we want to try to expand it and use some of our people here to? We can build a fence over several weeks or a few months, but eventually build a dog enclosure. But I know people want it. I have too many people that ask for it. They want some place to turn their dog loose, to let it exercise. And over here in our park, it doesn't have a fence around it. We got a lot of land, but we don't have a fence. I've walked over there enough to know that I don't like to meet unfriendly dogs on that trail over there, and I have done that. Everybody's got a dog, thinks their dog is just the greatest thing there is. He wouldn't bite anybody. Let me tell you, folks, your dog will bite somebody under the right conditions. But anyhow, I think we ought to let Roy do his job and then come back and talk about it.
Is that a table or a reject?
I'd make the motion to table it for a month, like Mr. Graves says. Give Ron a chance to just give some ballpark estimates as to how much it would cost to actually purchase it and install it. And, bring it back next month. Let's take a look at it and see, considering manpower hours and cost of materials.
I've got an auger we can use,
I'd rather not break it and have to buy another one.
not a problem. If it breaks, it breaks.
You sign a release.
I sort of say Danny's already saying release, release. I can hear him whispering it over here.
I'd suggest Keith just dig every single one of those holes with a post hole digger.
Hand by hand.
Fine with me. You get a fence in 2 years.
All right. We've had a motion by Vice Mayor Hill that we just tabled this. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Now, Ms. Walker.
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item 9 is to consider approval to surplus a 2016 Dodge Ram truck, which is Unit 7368, and a 2018 Dodge Charger. I'm assuming that must be a car, Unit 3745, for trade-in on new vehicles to Lonnie Cobb, and that, of course, is for the police department. That comes up from Chief Armour. Am I correct that we can apply whatever these bring to the price of the two that's come, or the two that are ordered or coming? Are we having a fire alarm? Okay.
I doubt people can hear you because I can't.
Vehicles would swap out in the fleet and 2 new ones would take its place. So we're removing these and replacing it with 2 more. The trade-ins go towards the vehicles to lower the price, and in the next line item of vote, we're going to have a grant to get more money to offset even more cost. And if you all remember, this year we were purchasing 2 original police cars. You all voted to add 2 more. That's what these 2 are for, is trade-ins for the 2 additional purchases. So these would reduce the cost of those 2 additional, and these are the 2 the chief has chosen and feels like we need to get rid of.
So we're not adding vehicles. We are just simply, these are the replacement or the sales of the 2.
Correct.
Of
So
the
we
2 from that we approved last time.
Yep, these are the 2 additional purchases, the trade-ins toward those 2 vehicles. Is what we do is we trade them to Lonnie Cobb to reduce costs because we get more out of trade than we can get selling them outright. So
Try the mic again. What's wrong with the vehicles? I just like to.
As part of the fleet plan, is it working? Still not working. Got me? Okay. It's part of the fleet plan. We've always tried to get rid of our oldest RR vehicles that were in poor mechanical condition. These are our oldest and highest mileage vehicles we have in fleet. So it would make sense to go on and roll these two out and bring in 2 new ones. Part of the reason, just for the audience standpoint, the reason we went ahead with ordering 2 more vehicles this year was because the state contract price is going to go up about $10,000, somewhere between $9,000 and $10,000 next year. So that's why we approached, and it was recommended to go on and do this 4 this year and not do any next year. So anyway, these 2 will be getting rid of our oldest in fleet, and
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions by the council? All right, I would consider a motion to surplus the 2016 Dodge Ram truck and the 2018 Dodge Charger for trade-in on the new vehicles.
Make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item 10, consider approval of Resolution 362-24 to apply for a 2024 Community Facilities Grant for police cars, $50,000. Is that correct, Chief?
So this grant would be applied to the price of those 2 additional cars to further reduce them. So between trade-ins and the 50,000, this will allow us to get the 2 additional cars that you all voted in and reduce the cost to the city, therefore saving us more money.
What's their chances of getting this grant?
I wish I could tell you that. If this is approved tonight, I'll start the final process tomorrow with UCDD to get it moving forward. I know one of the other agencies in the county has gotten a vehicle through this, so hopefully we can fall in place with them also. But I'm sorry, I can't really. We're talking about the federal government. I can't tell you. So.
I'm all for it. I hope we can get it.
We wish this was a give me grant, but it's not one of those.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution to apply for the 2024 Community Facilities Grant.
And I will second that motion and ask Mr. Walker to call the roll.
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Item number 11. This is to consider approval of Resolution 363-24 mandating annual performance reviews for the city administrator. Again, sponsored by Councilman Graves. This says that the city council shall conduct a performance review of the city administrator at least once annually, which should be presented at a regular meeting of the city council, next occurring at least 60 days following presentation and acceptance of the annual audit of the city. The city council shall determine and designate the manner of preparing and receiving the evaluations at the meeting at which the annual audit is presented and accepted. For some reason, I had in the back of my mind that I thought this was already mandated for all employees, that all employees are to be evaluated by their respective supervisors. Am I right about that, Mr. Morrison?
So supervisors should be monitoring and performing reviews of performance. We have not implemented a full performance review mandate every year yet, as we are preparing job descriptions for every job that's here so that supervisors and employees know what's expected and what's graded on. So those are in process and nearing completion, but we haven't fully implemented that plan at this time for all employees.
Well, I think I for one, see your performance every day. I don't see actually a need for an annual performance review. We know what you're doing. You're great to communicate with us. We try to take your recommendations, since you are actually the boots on the ground. And we already have in place that the council hires and fires the city administrator. But if someone wants to make this resolution, that would be up to them. But again, it just seems like a formality that we already see every day.
I got a comment. This is a resolution, not an ordinance. We can always it's not written in stone as much as an ordinance, but in my career at Oak Ridge, as working in research, I had to go through a job performance review every year for 36 years. I was always told that a certain time period I had to fill out some forms and answer some questions, and I had to go in and talk to supervisors. And they wanted to know what I had accomplished during the year. Plus, they wanted to know what I expected to accomplish the next year. I think most big businesses and companies do that. And I know Keith has already headed this direction, writing job descriptions so that probably everybody in the city will be doing this a year or 2 years or sometime in the future. To me, there's nothing negative about this at all. It gives him an opportunity to tell us what he feels that he accomplished in the last year. He can put his strong points down, and he can say, I did this and I did that. And if you just look around the city of Allgood for the last 12 months and start listing the things that have happened, like the farmer's market and the fire truck and the new garbage truck and Big Mac Drive and all the things that have been done, he would have a fantastic job performance review. And as he said last night, do I get a raise for that? I said, well, when you have a good job review, sometimes you get a raise that goes with it. If you did a lousy job, you almost know to begin with, it puts that person, in this instance, this is Keith. In other instances, it'll be other people when he gets through with all their job descriptions. But it gives him an opportunity to tell the council, this is what I have done in the last 12 months, and this is what I hope to do next year. And then the next time he says, out of my 10 goals I set for next year, I accomplished 8 of them. I didn't get this one done, but I got 8 out of 10. So there's nothing to fear on having your job performance evaluated. That can be a very positive thing, a very encouraging thing. So, no, we all don't know what he does. I know most of what he does. He's been very transparent the last several months. But people sitting out here don't know what he does. And I'm sure all the council's not in on everything he does. He has a great big job, and I think this is an opportunity for him to tell the council, tell other people, I'm doing a great job.
Well, our city administrator is not one to brag about what he does. He's very humble. He takes his position seriously. I have a paragraph, I guess, I'd like to read because I know Mr. Morrison probably wouldn't want me to, but I want everybody to know what he says about his job. I do not take my position at the city lightly. I give 100% to everything we do in helping our employees in any task where we are short-handed. My philosophy is everything, every day, everybody, excellent. This means to me in everything we do every day for everybody we encounter, we strive to provide excellent service in an equitable and cost-efficient manner. I live by this motto, and everything I do is driven by this. Everything I give and get is for this city and this community that I know in my heart can be so great. My reward is to see a community prosper and provide a salary for my family to make their life better. This is not a mission that I take lightly. Now, I know for a fact last night we had some flooding, and it flooded out the road in front of White Plains Academy, the old Allgood School. And I know personally that Mr. Morrison responded to that and had to stay with that and help out in that situation. That's just one thing. If somebody, he can drive about any piece of equipment, doesn't hesitate about getting his hands dirty. He is there for at least three, in the fourth department I see represented here, I don't think that they would take issue with anything with that. If they do, let them speak up. But
I don't see the word brag written anywhere. And I didn't say the word brag. Keith Morrison stands on his own 2 feet. He is a fantastic city administrator. He can make a long list of all of the things that he accomplishes for this city, and that's not bragging. That's just the facts. Yes, he gets out on the weekends. He advises us of all kinds of things, and he tries to advise all of you. This is just a way of him saying, this is what I've accomplished, and I'd like to accomplish these other things next year. It has nothing to do about bragging on yourself.
I'll add my 2 cents. I like the concept of hanging some performance monies on this. If we're going to go down this path, why would we not? And maybe this is a question for Mr. Rader. I mean, is that something we can consider of hanging, an additional? If he does a great job, I think he's going to do a fantastic job. I echo everything everyone says. Should we take this as an opportunity to do an annual review of the city manager, and if come up with a scoring system, and if we can create a system where if he meets, various criteria, whatever, that there is performance dollars tied to it. Incentivizes the city manager to just be as effective and awesome as they can be. I love that idea. And I don't think there's anything. I agree with you, Mr. Graves. I think it's beneficial for everybody. It takes a moment annually, and hears from the people they report to and say, hey, what am I doing good? What am I doing bad? I don't think that's inappropriate whatsoever. But again, I really like the idea of hanging some performance dollars on it, and maybe we tweak this to incorporate that. I don't know what the specifics are, but just. Maybe we can steal something from some other municipality, maybe get some guidance from Mr. Rader as to what that structure looks like, what works best, what doesn't. But that's a great idea.
I think this leads to more than just Keith. We got 1, 2, 3 Public Works Director, Fire Chief, Police Chief, Parks Director, all sitting in this room tonight. All of these guys work every day. And I don't think most of you sitting out So if Keith starts the performance, we do a performance appraisal, we can ring the bell for him. And it can spread on down to the others. And you guys need to start telling us what you do, informing the citizens. We see you working. We know you work. But what's accomplished in the last 30 days and things like that? You can build your resume. You can build your performance evaluation that you may have to do 2 or 3 years from now. So I don't see a negative in this at all. I think it's a good thing. That's just me. I know it helped me at Oak Ridge. Guarantee you. I'll make a motion and y'all can vote it down if you want to.
The motion as it stands is just to approve the resolution of 36324 mandating annual performance reviews for the city administrator. That motion was made by Councilman Graves. Hearing no second, the motion or the resolution fails, and we proceed on to the next item. Would you like to reconsider that, Ms. Hawkins? You want to second the motion? Okay. Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler,
No.
Honorable Bilbrey,
No.
Honorable Graves,
Yes?
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
No.
Resolution fails. Item number 12. Consider approval of the agreement with Axon for additional body cams under the current plan as outlined. Mr. Morrison, I know that's for some for the police department, but I know there's a carryover there, so could you help us with that?
There is. So the police department currently has Axon body cameras for each officer. They currently have tasers through Axon that are all tied together. And I think we added car cams, Chief. Have we got something with car cams yet on Axon?
We used the old cameras.
Okay.
And modified them.
So we modified, but we do have some stuff. What this does is add 6 cameras. This is for myself. This would be for each department head, including the police chief, who does not have a camera dedicated to him. It would be for the public works director, the fire chief, for the Parks and Rec director, as well as for the codes enforcement officer, Mr. Lane. These cameras will be intended for times that we are interacting with the public so that we have documented proof of what's going on, especially for these interactions. Some are more than others. You know, there are times that both chiefs and I and Walt are all out together, and there's times where Mr. Lane and I are out together, and when we're dealing with the public, this would give us that added protection for those interactions. This would be for a payment in March of 24 for $46.74, August of 24, $40.75, and January 2025, $67.92 a year, and then each year after that, $67.92. The total purchase price over those remaining 4 years, 46 months, is $29,125.80. At the time the PD renews their body cam and tasers, this would increase the camera count and should give us a better price with Axon overall, because they would group the entire package together. And I think this just adds some additional benefit and protection for all of us that are routinely interacting with the public.
Is there already, my question, money budgeted, or are we going to have to raid somebody?
No, I think we can survive this one.
Okay.
Now we'll budget for next year. We'll put the money in But this year it's just $4,674, and I think we can survive that this year. That's the good thing with the Axon plan is they spread the cost out, which they do for the PD. And again, this would fall under their contract through the remainder of their term. And then upon renewal of their contract, those would be added in to give us a better discount, and we'd bring that back to you all with the next 5-year plan.
So do we own it after 5 years, and then there's no monthly cost, or is this one of those things where you have to upgrade to get a new phone, and then you continue paying the monthly fee?
So I know at the end of 2 years or 3, we'll get renewal. You get brand new cameras because every time something new comes out, you automatically get the upgrade. Deputy Chief, do we keep cameras or they get turned in? Or if one breaks, they replace it. If we run over it, throw it out the window driving down the road by accident, if we can find it, they'll fix it and replace it.
And this includes like monthly storage and everything. We don't have to like worry about where this is stored.
And it's changed, has editing software, redaction software, has all of those capabilities.
I'll make the motion to approve the Axon. I guess this is an amendment to our current situation for Axon to allow for these.
6 additional.
Thank you. I was looking for the number 6. So the 6 additional body cams.
I second that motion. Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item number 13 is to consider approval of Blankenship PCA for the FY fiscal year 24 audit. I think that we had them last year,
We do.
and I don't know if they have given us a price or we don't know about that yet till we
It's
approve.
pretty standard every year. They were renewed a couple of years ago and give us prices over the years, and they just added increase to cover their expenses. We do have to have this in place by June 30th as required by the state, so we'll have to have an audit contract. So that's why we're going ahead and kind of getting this out of the way, is to get it ready and get it approved and get it uploaded to the state.
How much is it?
You would ask that.
I'm sorry.
I think I budget about 15 to 20,000 a year for that.
But they're not going up.
They haven't mentioned it.
Lock them in. I probably just jinxed us. I'll make the motion to approve Blankenship PCA for the 24 audit.
Motion's been made. I'll be happy to second that. Now, Ms. Walker.
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 14, consider approval of the purchase of turnout gear and equipment in the amount of $15,062.37 to Loose Equipment, and that's Chief Judd's request. I don't know who wants to speak to that. Do you want to,
Either
Mr.
one.
Morrison?
Loose Equipment was formerly EVS, which is who we typically buy equipment from. This was part of the annual plan Chief Judd and I have been working on for a while, that we replace gear gradually and don't wait till we're completely exhausted. For the general public, fire gear is typically only good for 10 years. After 10 years, it reaches an expiration date. If you use it beyond that, then you're at liability for anything that happens to any firefighter in that gear. We currently have 2 to 4 sets a year, depending on cost, which also allows us to adjust sizes. So if we have, new firefighters that don't fit equipment they already have. We can use that year's replacement equipment to adjust accordingly as we go throughout the years. A lot of the times we can reuse the equipment. We've got a grant coming up here that we're fixing to talk about to get more turnout gear and a washer and dryer for turnout gear. So this is just part of the annual replacement plan.
You got it.
This is already in the budget.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of the turnout gear and equipment in the amount of $15,062.37 to Loose Equipment. Is there a second? Okay, I got Ms. Hawkins first. Okay. Now I need Ms. Walker.
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item number 15 is to consider approval of the agreement for the State Fire Marshal's Office Fire Department grant, of which I have written that it's about $39,000. Is that correct, Chief?
Yes, we were awarded $39,320.
Okay. And I also understand that for the city, there's no match.
Yeah, this is a no match grant from the State Fire Marshal's Office. We were lucky to get.
I think we like free money. So I will certainly make a motion that we approve the agreement for the State Fire Marshal's Office, that we accept the State Fire Marshal's Office Fire Department grant in the amount of $39,324, whatever it was.
320.
$320. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Walker.
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins, Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item number 16, consider approval to authorize the city attorney to file a lawsuit for property located at 164 West Main Street. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar. You might not recognize 164 West Main, but right next to Dr. Hurd's parking lot, or his office, is a house and we have since condemned it. However, there is a legal component to us proceeding with that house, and I will let Mr. Rader tell everyone what that is.
Well, of course, Mayor, as you know, in order to take action to cause this dilapidated house to be either brought up to code or demolished, we have to give notice to all of the property owners. This particular property has been in heirship for a great many years, and we haven't been able to identify all of the heirs. The estate is open. The matter's been, the property taxes have been delinquent, and the matter was scheduled for a tax sale, which would have solved the problem earlier this year. But someone paid some of the back taxes to keep it out of the tax sale. And so this will be a lawsuit that allows us to bring in the heirs that we know, identify the other heirs that we don't know, get everybody before the court, and give the court the jurisdiction to, we hope, order that the property either be brought up to code or demolished and removed. And that'll be up to the property owners if they want to invest that money.
Any questions? Comments?
Any idea how big a deal this is cost-wise?
No, we don't know, and that's the problem. We've tried every avenue that we can to address this informally. We've dealt with the attorney for the estate that's open. There's a very substantial 10-care lien that's involved, and so it may be necessary to negotiate or resolve with them, or even get 10-care to foreclose on the house and take the house. for the government. But the problem is we don't know who all the heirs are, and what we're going to have to do through the lawsuit process is essentially identify those, and that may be to take depositions. It's going to be several $1,000s if we go down this road, but I think that the city staff has exhausted every other option, and I know I've spent a fair amount of time on it with them to try to exhaust every option before we incur that expense.
So if somebody can keep paying back taxes, they can keep it there for a long time. Partial back taxes.
We had hoped that TennCare would foreclose on it. I think it's at least over $70,000 is the TennCare lien, is the best of my recollection. 116,000, and so it's TennCare ought to foreclose on it and sell the property, but they haven't taken any action to do that either. It's hard to get them to move when they know that somebody will have to resolve it eventually.
TennCare, they may never. May be sitting there for on and on. It's really an eyesore.
Well, if it were just an eyesore, the city shouldn't do anything about it, but it's actually a danger at this point, and we need to keep our citizens safe.
I'll make the motion to approve a lawsuit for the property at 164 West Main Street.
I will second that motion. And I will call for a vote. Ms. Walker?
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Item 17, consider approval of an agreement with Mark's Pops for fireworks in the amount of $10,000. I guess you recall, I hope, that we have dealt with Mark's Pops for several years. I can't even remember how far back we've gone, but it's been a long time, yes.
Even before we were running it, Mark's Pops was the provider.
Okay.
And one comment I'll make about Mark's Pops is they know our setup and they know what we have, and they apply for the permit with the state fire marshal's office to do this. So if anything comes up, they are familiar with the site, they are familiar with us, and they were familiar with things around the site that could be a problem, and they are able to mediate that with the fire marshal's office without us even having to get involved. So that, I think that speaks highly to their professionalism and capability to perform this, and I feel like they always provide an excellent show. So.
I know it's always about this time of year that we need to go ahead, if we're going to use them, that we need to authorize something, because they have other offers, and so we need to schedule that as early as possible. And I think this year the fireworks show will be on June the 29th. I believe that's right.
That is correct.
Okay. I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the agreement with Mark's Pops for fireworks in the amount of $10,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Hawkins. Now Ms. Walker.
Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Honorable Bilbrey,
Yes.
Honorable Graves,
Yes.
Honorable Hawkins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hill.
Yes.
Now we have the city administrator's report. I feel like you've reported all night long, but if you have any additional comments.
So we will be doing a software upgrade in March. This was approved by council several months ago, and it's been in process for several months. It takes some time to do the transition. So March the 21st and 22nd, where this will allow them to convert our data to the new system, get the system fully live and operational, and then we will be ready to go.
all other departments will be working that day. It's just that we have to close the actual building here at City Hall to make the,
We'll be working just on other things. They just won't be available to make payments and check on utilities because we'll have no access to the system. So there's no availability to look at property taxes or any of those things of that nature. If a citizen had a request for service or some issue, we would still be available for call. Public Works will still be working. All the trash and everything will run normal. It's just we won't be available to access customer accounts and take payments and get information until this transition is completed.
department heads.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Are y'all going to arm wrestle to see who goes first?
I've got one thing to say. The city administrator was able to obtain a speed sign and some new electronic billboard signs at like a third of the price. He is very good at locating deals, and those will be operational here coming up pretty soon. Also, we had a lot of patrol cars in our parking lot out here in first part of the month. That was from we did a basic DUI school. 22 officers from around the area, or all APD officers were there. To include we're doing an advanced DUI investigation class here in April.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, fire chief. Okay.
I won the arm wrestle.
Apparently you did. Mr. Phipps, everything okay? All right. Now, if we have any citizen or delegation that would like to speak, and welcome back with Mr. Wood approaching the podium.
He made some comments about this new ordinance 70724. And my question is it going to be public knowledge for the council to vote up or down on the recommendation of whoever the person is for a department head? That's question one. Question two is, what is the liability to the city if a nominee, not necessarily, the one that's selected, but if a nominee who supposedly ranked first and was not selected, and you have somebody else that was, and they become aware where they were in the ranking and not select. Attorney was talking because you can get into EEO suits, you can get in, I have brown hair. Okay, I wasn't selected because of brown hair. Doesn't make any difference that, you guys didn't even deal with it. I'm just concerned from a citizen standpoint of what is the liability to the city if we go down this path.
Of course, I'll defer to Danny, but the ordinance, as I read it, it is a public type hearing. When the administrator makes a recommendation, then that person would, or that recommendation, that person would be here at a full council meeting, just like we have, and they would be looking us in the eye, and we would be saying yes or no. Now, that's what I understand. Danny, if that's wrong, correct me.
No, you're right. The city council can't vote in any manner other than in a public regular meeting, and so the ordinance would require that to be done. As far as the liability, obviously, we're going to have to work hard to ensure that everything is done in a fashion where those kinds of questions can't be raised. But if the council were to make a decision based on an inappropriate consideration or inappropriate factor, then that could generate liability for the city itself, and that is a concern. But we'll try very hard not to let that happen.
Understand, it's just that's one thing that I'm concerned about, because I've seen some, in my previous life experience, I have seen some people come in and they had a chip on their shoulder, and all they wanted to do was knock it off. We could be facing quite a bit of liability. That's all my question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll get you next, okay?
I'd also like to ask some questions about ordinance 707-24. With all the praise that you've heaped on him tonight, what's the but? I mean, you've been going the whole meeting praising him, and I'm just curious, what's the but? Because he asked a question about passion versus college degree. Can you answer?
I'll listen to your comments.
You're not going to answer? Well, I can tell you what a college degree means, unless you're going to do something in science or medicine or anything like that. It means that you can write down a plan, 4 years, graduate. That's what it tells somebody that's hired. How do you gauge passion? What I think this is about, been warned not to go down this road. Some people might say, well, let's not hire females. They get pregnant. They cost the city money. Some might say, let's not hire military or National Guard. They'd have to go train in defense of our kind of council not getting their way. You three. Okay? Someone doesn't get hired, you get mad. Someone doesn't get a promotion, you get mad. That's what it's about. Period. Plain and simple. You know, the people of All Good don't know what's going on below the surface of the water. Okay? Only about 5%, maybe less than that, know. 95% of the people don't know. Okay? And I think it's just, I'm not going to say that. My wife told me not to cuss. Okay? The last sentence of the ordinance, though, says that the public welfare requires it. I think you're looking out for your welfare. Possible solutions? Why don't you look into a limited civil service? Stay in your own lane, do your job. Let people do theirs.
Thank you. And now this gentleman. Yes, please.
Well, I'm not going to claim to speak for anyone but myself, but I will tell you that there are 5 people up there that are elected by the citizens of this town, and I'm pretty sure that we do a pretty good job. And they are the ones that have to make the final decision. I think a whole lot of Keith. My wife, who is a much better judge of character than I am, thinks even more of him, okay? We're not always going to have Keith. You know, we talked about we're not always going to have this council. We're not always going to have that city administrator either. And oversight by the council is exactly what I'm looking for when I vote for a council member. I think Keith does a great job. I can't say that enough. I'm impressed by our entire city government. We are luckier than we deserve to be. Right now, y'all only have one tool when it comes to Keith, and that's a sledgehammer. I don't think that's a great idea. Keep other tools in your pocket. Do what you were elected to do and oversee the city government. That's all I got.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Bond, please come up.
Speaking of this, I've worked in various areas in my lifetime, and we always had some system where there was you reported every year. You had to be checked, you know, what you did was to be made known to, I worked for Upper Cumberland Human Resource Agency, Upper Cumberland Development District. All department heads and all personnel had to be reported before the board every year. We had to have some kind of checks and balances, a good report, and seldom there was anything else. But it was a good thing. And I think that in itself is a good thing. I heard more from Dale tonight. I've sat here through I don't know how many of these meetings. We never hear anything from the department heads as to what's going on. And I think it would be nice to know a little bit about what is going on with the different departments, what they're doing, what they're planning, what's going on in the city. We can see what we're spending money on, but we don't know the everyday thing. And one other comment, the sidewalks, the ones we've been getting look beautiful, but walk on some of them sometime. They're crumbling. The new ones are crumbling like everything. There's rocks all over them. I walked today down Main Street, there in front of the church, and that is almost disintegrated, and it's not been there but 2 or 3 years. I don't know if there's any repercussions with the concrete company or with what's going on, but on some of the ones on 2nd Avenue on it that were just done year before last, they're crumbling. And that's a concern for me that we're spending a lot of money, and the sidewalks are not much better after 2 or 3 years than they were to begin with.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure our department heads will be looking into that, or Public Works. We can check on that, and it's nice to know where there's a problem. So that's a good thing. Anything else? All right. I want to remind everyone that our next meeting will be March the 12th, and we want to keep in mind the dates that Mr. Morrison mentioned of the 21st and the 22nd, that operations here at City Hall will have to be closed for a software upgrade. If there's not anything else, I will make a motion that we adjourn. Is that seconded by anybody? Do you want to stay? Okay. And all in agreement say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you.